The easiest swim in Ironman history, today on the Do Hard Things Today podcast. Okay, so we led in with a little teaser of the easiest swim in the history of Ironman, which for those of you that follow Ironman or follow triathlon, you know that Ironman Florida had what could be considered to be the hardest swim in the history of Ironman swimming. Is that true, Hal?
Take it from me. Well, I don't have anything to compare it to, but that's what I hear.
Yeah, well, and from everything I've heard and everything I've read, that is true. And this is part two of the podcast. We had a great success story of Hal taking on his first half Ironman and going in and just crushing Augusta right at 6 hours, following a great game plan. And as we ended that podcast, I asked Hal, okay, what was next for you? And what was next for you?
Tackling a full Ironman.
Full Ironman,
Mm-hmm.
and that was Ironman Florida. Ironman Florida is in November, I think November the 6th this year.
It was November 6th.
Yeah, November the 6th, and Ironman Florida is a unique race in that, well, a couple of things. A lot of times people will make the mistake of saying, hey, this is an easier Ironman because it's flat.
Flat bike, flat run.
Flat bike, flat run. But it also brings the unique character of it's an ocean swim.
Gulf of Mexico.
Yep, 2 loops, right?
2 loops.
Yeah, and so you're in salt water, but again, as we mentioned on the last podcast, when you get open water, that brings unique challenges and conditions.
Yes.
And as we'll talk about in a minute, there were some real unique challenges and conditions that you guys faced. But the course is. The other thing I'll say about this is when you say, okay, it's a flat course. We live in the upstate of South Carolina. We're halfway between Atlanta and Charlotte, and we're in rolling hills. And that is, a lot of times people will think, well, you're having to pedal up the hills, but then you get to coast down the hills as well.
Right. So
you're not a constant pedaling. At Florida, when you're on a flat course, you're pedaling constantly.
Yeah.
And So that's another challenge that you can face while you're not facing the challenge of steep hills or pedaling up the hills. You are facing just that constant pedaling.
Mm-hmm. Which one thing I practiced here at Calpin's Battlefield.
Yep,
it's a loop, 3-mile loop. People would look on my Strava and say, "How in the heck did you do 100 miles?" 3 miles at a time on a loop? I say, well, you're constantly, with the exception of one little piece, you're constantly pedaling on that loop. So that's why I did that.
Yeah,
That was
well, and
crazy.
And tell us about the difference in that and what we're usually riding around here.
Going around that loop, except for that one little downhill section, you're constantly pedaling around it. So that was a good prep for Florida. For the constant pedaling that you're doing there on the flat course. That was the reason that we did that.
So obviously your son had an injury, was not going to be playing football, and so this opened up on your
so 1st of August, middle of August, somewhere in that time frame. When he wasn't able to play football, that kind of turned on a light bulb and opened up an opportunity to say, hey, maybe I want to go ahead and knock this full Ironman out this fall. So, checked on, see if there were slots available, checked on hotels, all that lined up, asked for off from work, all that lined up. So everything lined up to do the Ironman Florida from getting in and starting there. Contacted, I do the TriDot triathlon training, which I use for Augusta, but I did all the workouts came online through their program. But they also have coaches that you can hook up with and get one-on-one coaching from them. So we talked about before about getting a coach do a full. So I hooked up with the coach. I said, Coach Matt, I introduced myself, had a FaceTime call with him. I said, looking at what I've been doing for Augusta, do you think I can do Ironman Florida? He looked at all my stuff and said, the question he asked is, what's your expectations for Florida? I said, just finish. Time. I didn't have any expectations for time. And plus I hadn't run a marathon before Florida. I have never run a marathon. So he said, with that expectation of just finishing, we can do it in August, September, October, 3 months of prep from where you're at, from what you've been doing for Augusta. He knew I was strong bike. I was getting stronger on the run. So that was a plan to just finish, to complete an Ironman in Florida.
So on the last podcast, you said you were about 7 to 8 hours is what you were doing, 7 to 8 hours a week for your half Ironman.
8 to 10, somewhere in that neighborhood.
So let's talk about what did that look like leading up to your full Ironman?
When the Ironman, when we programmed all that into the TriDot software, I'll call it. The only difference that changed, the interval work stayed the same that you do. What changed, the long bikes got longer. They went from 2 hours to 4 hours on Saturday, and the long runs got longer. Yeah. I did my long runs on Wednesday, so those went from an hour and 10-minute runs, hour and 15-minute runs, to twice that, to 2.5 hour runs. I think the longest distance run I did prior to Florida was 15.5 miles.
Yeah. What was the hardest part of your training?
For the Ironman, doing all those crazy loops around cow pens, 3 miles at a time, doing 100 miles, 3 miles at a time. Yeah. But we use those for what they call race rehearsals. So the race rehearsals come 4 weeks out and 2 weeks out, and you have a full. You practice your nutrition, practice your rest stops, practice your power if you're going to use power, or your heart rate. So those race rehearsals were done up at Cowpens, and those were probably the hardest. So the longest one was 6 hours. Yeah, 6 hour ride. So.
And that's a long time riding around in a 3.
Oh yeah, that was a long time. So mentally, that was tough.
But I think it's important to point out here as well that when you pick a race, especially an Ironman distance, because you can't. We talk about it when people make the jump from half marathon to full marathon. That it's really hard to fake your way through a full marathon.
Right.
Yeah. When you get into these kind of distances, it's hard to fake your way through it. And I think, what you did, again, it showed a lot of discipline in, you could ride around here, but it's hard to ride around here and find a long, flat area.
Like Florida.
And that's a different kind of riding. And I think if you're going to pick a really hilly Ironman, half Ironman, you need to be riding in the hills. If you're gonna pick a flat one, you need to be practicing
to simulate the race conditions.
So that was the toughest part. What surprised you about just the training aspect of it? Did anything about your training surprise you? Did the intensity levels change that much when you're training for a full Ironman rather than a half Ironman?
Really, the intensity levels didn't change a whole lot. Maybe the runs. Well, the runs did get faster. Mm-hmm. They did get faster. The short runs got faster. The long runs were slower, but the short interval runs got faster. Yeah. That I did. I usually did those on Sunday. So what they do is they on those higher intensity runs, you'll run zone 2 for most of the run, and then what they do, they load intervals into the back end of the run. Yeah. So I do like 3 8-minute hard at the end of the run.
Yeah.
So they would, I guess you call that backload.
Yeah, which is really hard.
Yeah, they backload the hard efforts at the end of the run. So and some of the long runs they do the same. I mean, they wouldn't be as long. Maybe do 1 7-minute hard effort at the end of the run.
Yeah,
and then you got some cool down.
Now, how about your swim? So you go from, which was arguably, we talked about it. It's not easy, but it's an easier swim at Augusta when you're swimming downstream in the river.
Yeah.
But then you're going from that to the unknown of an open water ocean 2.4 mile swim.
Right.
So what did your training look like?
So my swim, prior to bringing the coach on board, they gave me the swim workouts with intervals, certain paces to do, warm-ups, main set, cool down. Prior to the coach, I just went out and swam. Yeah. I would swim. Instead of doing the hard intervals, I would do, 2,000 yards or 2,500 or whatever, just at a same pace, because I knew that I was going to Augusta, and so really I was kind of ignoring the swim workouts. I mean, I would do them, but not as prescribed.
Yeah.
So after bringing the coach on board and deciding on Florida, then I had somebody to watch me. And so I had to do the intervals then. So that's when, after doing the intervals, my swim did get better, a lot better after doing those. So, of course, I was preparing for 2.4 miles versus 1.2. So I did my workouts as prescribed.
So do you think you got exposed a little bit right there by your coach?
Oh, yeah.
Since you were being watched.
Yeah, and I admitted to him. I said, prior to us talking, us hooking up, said I just been swimming, and he probably knew that, but they do monthly assessments, and you can tell by those monthly assessments where their athletes are. They do a swim test, a bike test, and a run test every month on where you're at. So I think he knew kind of where I was at and what I need to be doing. So yeah, he strongly suggested that I stick to the prescribed plans for the swim.
So what do you think going into the race? Where do you think you showed the most improvement from your half Ironman training into walking into the full Ironman? Where'd you
the run?
The run?
Oh yeah, I can tell a big difference.
Was it your speed or just everything?
Yeah, got faster, more endurance. Just doing those long 3-hour runs. And then the short ones got faster. So yeah, I felt like I really improved my run with those. So.
Well, and that is what, when you make that move up, a lot of the reading I've done and is that you do, surprisingly, you will see when you think of Ironman is just long runnings, but your speed you really get faster, on those shorter.
Yeah, my assessments got better, every month. I'd knock off a few seconds. The run assessments is a 5K run, which I did on the track every month just to have the same normalized location. So that they were getting better. Yeah. So yeah, really the run improved.
Well, and so your run's getting better. You're strong on the bike, and that's your specialty. Yep. And then you kind of get, like I said, exposed on the swim by your coach of, hey, look, I've just been swimming. Now I need to step it up.
Yeah, I got to step it up.
So now we're moving into race week. Let's talk about, you had mentioned this before the podcast. Let's talk about the logistics and everything that goes into from the time you show up. Now, you drove down to Florida. Yep. But from the time you show up, what happens leading up to the race?
Yeah, even 2 weeks out from traveling to the race, just gathering everything you need, especially nutrition-wise. You practice the nutrition, but making sure you got your Cliff Bars or gels or whatever you're going to have. and figuring out how to pack everything. Now, we talked a little bit about bags for Ironman. For particularly Florida, they give you, when you check in, they give you 5 bags. So they have a morning bag, you have a bike gear bag, and these are like plastic bags. You have a bike personal needs bag, you have a run gear bag, and you have a run personal needs bag. And they give you everything in the athlete guide on what you need to put in these bags, but they're kind of self-explanatory, but still you got to plan, make sure you got everything in your bag that you need. So the personal needs bags, the one for the bike and the run, those are mainly nutrition. I had my nutrition plan. Matthew Rowland that we had on the podcast, I saw on one of his posts that he had was going to eat. He ate Uncrustables in his Ironman in Maryland. So I had 3 Uncrustables packed in my personal needs and 2 Snickers bars, some Advil, some diarrhea medicine if I needed it, and I forgot what else. But Uncrustables was my go-to nutrition for the halfway marks, and I had practiced with those on my race rehearsals.
And so when do you turn these things in? When do you put?
That was kind of a big confusion down in Florida on when to turn these things in. But at one point they were saying, okay, you bring them when you check your bike in, you leave them, and we'll put them out, and this and that, and finally you ended up bringing them the day of the race with you, and then your personal needs bags. They had an area that on the walk to the swim, you put them in a certain area, and they take them out to the bike course, and they take them out to the run course, and they're supposed to be there when you get there during the day. So a lot of logistics. It was, you know me, I had spreadsheets. Spreadsheet with all the lists and stuff.
Yeah.
I took pictures I had laid everything out on the dining room table of each bag. I took pictures and sent them to my coach for him to look at to make sure I had everything. he suggested things, and so yeah, it was lots of planning.
So for somebody like you, you mentioned that you're going to have the spreadsheets and those kind of things. Do you think that makes it harder or easier going into it from an anxiety level?
For me, it reduced anxiety because I was able to check off everything that I needed. Yeah. I can't imagine somebody kind of packing like crazy and hoping they got everything. So for me, it reduced anxiety having the list and stuff. So.
Yeah. So now let's talk about race morning. Well, no, let's go the day before a race. What'd you do the day before the race? Let's talk nutrition, everything that you're...
So the race was on Saturday. So I traveled down on Thursday, did a little short run after I got there just to loosen the legs up. Friday morning, my coach says the most important meal before a race, half Ironman or Ironman, probably marathon too, the most important meal is the breakfast the day before.
Really?
Yep.
Why is that?
I guess to get all the storage, all the calories stored, the glycogen stored, maybe. But he said to eat for Augusta and Florida to eat a big breakfast. And my gosh, I've never spent $24 on a breakfast, but I did in Florida.
Really?
Huge pancakes, every sausage, bacon, eggs, hash browns. It was just insane what we ate down there. So that was on Friday. After that, we went out and did a practice swim at where the swim was going to occur. So the swim occurs in Florida at the Pier Park. So you go out, swim out around the pier and come back. So we did that as a practice swim on Friday.
How was the water in the practice swim?
It was wonderful. It was wonderful. It was a little choppy. The wind was blowing a little bit. It was cold. It was getting cold, but there was a front moving in. A little bit of it was actually raining when we kind of started or finished the swim. So it was getting windy. The wind was picking up. But we hopped in the water. It was warm. Did our practice swim, and I said, we got this. I said, I got this. So that afternoon they put the buoys out, and you could see the red buoy out there in the distance, both red buoys where you had to turn. And I said, well, they don't look as far as I had imagined. So I was.
So you were feeling confident.
I felt confident on Friday, the day before.
Now, on the day before, what was the mood with the athletes and the community around there as far as the people that were doing because I know everybody talks and that kind of thing. You know a little weather's coming in.
Yeah.
What's the mood there? Is there trepidation, or is everybody feeling like kind of, hey, we may run into a little something, but we're going to be fine?
I think the main concern on Friday about Saturday was how cold it was going to be Saturday morning.
Yeah.
So it ended up being 44 degrees at race time on Saturday morning. So, there was concern, especially on what to wear on the bike when it was going to be that cold. Do I wear pullover sleeves? Do I wear a long sleeve shirt, gloves? Do I wear leggings on my legs? So a lot of it revolved around what the temperature was going to be on Saturday morning. So.
Now, was this? I know we've talked about this with the Dopey Challenge and the marathon. I mean, there's been times that I've run on Thursday morning and it's 30 degrees, and then on Sunday it's 85 degrees.
Yeah.
So did you, going into this, did you know before you left home coming down that you may be running in this kind of weather, or was this a 2-day before deal?
Not before leaving home, but on Friday afternoon when I had the chat with my coach before the race, he mentioned the possibility there might be a small craft advisory for the wind on the Gulf of Mexico, and he told me to actually be prepared mentally for them to cancel the swim.
Oh, wow.
He said, okay, if they cancel the swim, if they issue a small craft advisory, they will cancel the swim because the kayaks can't go out there and they can't get the boats and stuff out there for safety. So they will actually cancel the swim. So he said, now be prepared mentally to do that. Yeah. So you're going to go out on the bike and do your thing on the bike and do your thing on the run. Just be prepared mentally for them to cancel the swim. So we talked about that Friday afternoon because he was watching the weather.
At that point, you thought that's the worst thing that could possibly happen.
Yeah.
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 It was.
Yeah.
It was. So so we talked about it before on Friday, and of course I was watching the weather, several different sources of weather, and I saw that the wind was not forecast to go down. It was 13, 14, 15 miles an hour, and it was not forecast to subside any overnight.
Now I got to believe right then you're not even thinking about the swim. You're thinking about.
I'm thinking about a headwind on the bike.
Yeah, you're thinking this is going to make the bike really hard.
Yeah,
and
because I knew it was coming out of the northeast.
Again, and that's the wind on a flat course is the worst thing you can have.
Yeah,
because it's going to be pushing again for half the race. It's going to be pushing against.
And I was wondering, like Augusta, we had a heart rate range that I was going to do, but if you're pushing against the wind, you're going to be running up against that heart rate range and not making a good pace.
Yeah,
because of the wind. So, that was a concern, really, for the bike. Yeah. The wind.
So the night, how did you sleep? Were you anxious?
The only thing I anxious really was about having all the bags packed and having everything, all the logistics taken care of.
Yeah.
And then watching the weather.
Yeah.
Really.
All right. So what time did you wake up? Race morning?
4:30.
4:30.
Got ready. Made my usual breakfast, pre-race breakfast, which is, let's see if you remember.
Chocolate chip waffles?
Chocolate chip waffles and peanut butter. Yep. A little cup of coffee. The room had a toaster, so I made my chocolate chip waffles and peanut butter and did my usual thing. Stuck to that. Jill picked us all up, took us out to transition to get our bags situated and get everything set up.
Now, let me ask you, at this point, did you know the conditions you were facing, or you still just thinking, hey, it's going to be windy, cold?
Yeah, the wind was still blowing. It was cold. We actually had to rack our bikes normally you rack them by the seat,
mm-hmm.
but because of the wind blowing, you had to rack them by the handlebars.
Yeah.
So because they would blow off. Or if you had Velcro straps, you could strap it. But, the wind was blowing that hard where you had to rack your bike a different way. So,
yeah.
But it was cold. I mean, the wind was blowing. I don't know what the wind chill would have been, but it was.
So what's your mental makeup at this point in time?
Really, I was just worried about the wind, still not thinking about how bad it could be, and just really there's so much going on with getting lined up for the swim. It was packed. I mean, there was 2,400 people getting lined up for the swim, so you're in line with them. They've got bags. You got your bags that you have to drop in a certain spot, and your feet are freezing. So mentally, it's just thinking about how cold it was. And I knew the water was going to be warm, so we were anxious to get in the water to warm up.
Yeah.
So
as you're standing there on the beach and looking out into the ocean, number one, what are the officials saying, and then what are you seeing?
Standing on the beach, you really couldn't see how bad it was, and we'll get into how bad it was. From the beach to the end of the pier, which is about 400 yards, quarter mile, it wasn't that bad. Seeing there wasn't huge waves like you got on the Atlantic Ocean, like at Myrtle Beach. There's not huge waves on the Gulf of Mexico, so there wasn't that day. So there wasn't huge waves, and it really didn't look that bad standing there on the beach. Mike Riley was there. He was saying, "Oh, I'll see you guys after a while," and I got to high five him as I got up, lined up, and got in the water. So everybody was excited, and for a few minutes, until we got past the pier.
Yeah. And then the gun goes off. And for those of you that are listening to the podcast, maybe if you're local or if you're not, I would encourage you to kind of look up this race, Ironman Florida, and just kind of look up the conditions and see some of the stories of it, because it's as you're about to hear, probably the toughest conditions that maybe you've ever had for an Ironman swim. And so let's just walk us through this swim. So you hit the.
So they send you out 5 at a time across the timing mat. Every few seconds I say go. So you go out with a group of 5 and get in the water. And immediately my toes started warming up, in the water. So I got about halfway out the pier swimming, and I finally felt my toes again. They would warm up. So at that point, it wasn't too bad. I just got in a good rhythm, kind of a relaxed rhythm, my typical what I was planning on doing. Got past the pier. Once you got past the pier, that's when it started getting choppy.
Yeah.
I wouldn't describe it as swells, huge swells like y'all in the ocean, but really choppy. The wind was blowing from out to sea from the beach. So I think what was happening, the wind would come over the beach, and it really wasn't hitting the water. How the wind would probably come over the beach, and the wind really probably wasn't hitting the water until you got to the end of the pier. But where the wind started stirring up the water was at the end of the pier, out to the first turn buoy, which they're red. The ones going out were yellow till you got to the red one. Then when you get to the red one, you take a right turn, swim parallel to the beach, and then get to the next red buoy, take a right turn, and then swim back to the beach. So you do that. That's 1.2 miles, so you do it twice. So I really didn't notice how bad it was really till I started getting out to the first turn buoy. And I was swimming along, and you'd see it. I said, "Oh, I'm coming up on it." Swim a few strokes. I usually sight. I was sighting every 6 strokes. This is my typical open water. Every 6 strokes, I'd look and see where I was going. So I'd take my 6 strokes and look up. I said, "Oh, almost there." 6 more, look up. Oh, almost there. 6 more, I'm not getting any closer.
Yeah, yeah.
6 more, I'm a little closer, but the buoy is moving or something. At that point, it wasn't moving, but I understood they did move. But anyway, so you get closer, and it's like you'd never get there.
Yeah.
So you make the turn around the buoy, make a right turn, and looking back, I made a bad right turn because I was way off. Well, probably made a bad right turn, and also the current and the wind was blowing me towards Cuba. So I look over to my right, and probably the stream of swimmers was probably 30 or 40 feet to my right. So I said, I got to get back over there. So first correction was to get back to where I was supposed to be. I wasn't alone out there. I mean, there was probably 4 or 5 people out there with me. And so I got back to the stream of swimmers, started swimming to the second buoy, the red buoy, to turn, and it was the same thing. You'd swim along. I'm getting closer. Then you get closer, and then you weren't getting any closer. So it was bad. And
somebody said online it was comparative to swimming in one of those endless pools where you're just swimming, and obviously in an endless pool you're not making any forward progress. You're just swimming in the current,
swimming in the spot. So
yeah,
I'm sure that's what I was doing with the current. But so I'm a right hand breather. Now I wish I was probably a bilateral breather swimming. So every time I take a breath, it was like somebody was pouring a bucket of salt water in my face.
Oh wow!
With the wind blowing against your face. So you have to turn your head more to breathe. So that slows you down. And then
so at this point you've made the first turn to basically it's a 2-loop swim course. You swim out, make a right turn, swim parallel, make a right turn, go to the beach. So when you're swimming parallel at this point, do you know that okay, I'm in danger of not being able to make this swim cut off?
I didn't know it at that point.
Okay.
I didn't know how fast I was going or how fast I wasn't going.
Yeah.
So I felt like being off course a little hurt me, but I didn't know how much it hurt me as far as making the swim cut off. So made the first right turn. Well, one other thing is the how bad the chop was. If you imagine you're in a boat, and you know how you go across the waves, and the hull of the boat slams down as you go across the waves. That's what my head was doing on the water. Every time a wave would cross me, I would go up and then come back down, and my head would spam, bam, bam, but I wasn't going anywhere.
Yeah,
it was just the current and the waves lifting me up and then slamming me back down. So made the right turn. Going facing the wind, it was like coming out. It was rough, but it wasn't as rough as it was doing a cross wind. So, got to the shore, and I had predicted or planned on doing each loop in 50 minutes.
Yeah.
That would have gave me about a 140-ish swim time, which is well below the 220, and about on pace with what I usually swim. So I got to the beach and looked at my watch, and I was 110.
So when you saw that number, what went through your head?
I said, I said, I've got to do the second loop and not stop.
Yeah.
I got to do the second loop with no stopping, basically.
Because there were literally people coming out of the first loop, and they would literally come out of the first loop and just walk away and just be done.
Yeah.
Wouldn't even attempt the second loop.
Yeah, I saw 110, and I said, I thought if I can do the second and at a good pace and not stop, I can make it.
Yeah.
So I went back in trying the second loop. It got worse. Yeah. On the second loop.
Supposedly, the longer into the swimming went, the worse it got.
Yeah.
Worse conditions got.
And the ones that started at the front of the line, it got worse. So some of them maybe started 30 or 40 minutes before I did. They didn't have it as bad as the ones that started towards the back, which would have been the slower swimmers anyway. So got back in the water. They'd run out of cups for water. They poured water in my throat, and so got back in the water. And yeah, like I said, it was worse. So made the first turn. Finally made the second turn, and it seemed like I'd never get to that second red buoy. So made the turn at the second red buoy.
And was that it seemed like from the reports online and in groups that from when you make the right turn and you're going parallel on that second, that was the worst part of it. Was that the worst?
Yeah, swimming parallel to the beach was the worst part.
Yeah.
I mean, you couldn't even see the pier.
It was that bad.
It was that bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, you couldn't see the pier from out there. All you could see was the buildings on the hotels on the beach.
So what's going through your mind at this point?
Well, at that point, I was thinking, well, I won't make the 220, but I wasn't going to quit.
Yep.
I didn't quit. So made the turn, still swimming strong. I never felt like I was taxed, with my swim. Maybe it's because I wasn't going fast enough, but never felt like I was out of, not breath, but out of energy.
Yeah.
Because I was still swimming. I felt fairly strong swimming. But so I got even with the pier, which is about 400 yards out. And then I got about halfway down the pier. I could hear the music on the beach, hear the announcer.
So you're starting to feel like maybe, hey,
I can make this swim.
Yeah, I might make it.
I wasn't looking at my watch, so I didn't know what my time was. So I said, I'm gonna make it. And I didn't know I was past, but I looked back. I looked back behind me, and the jet ski was towing the buoys behind me.
Yeah. So you knew then.
So I said, this is not good that they're picking up the course. And come to find out, they had to have everybody all out of the water by 10 o'clock to open up the pier, I think, for the city. I think that was, 10 or 10:30. I forgot what it was. So they had to have everybody out of the water anyway. So about that time after I saw the jet ski, the little boat pulled up beside me. I think they're called a Zodiac boat or whatever. And I had two safety people in it, and they said, "Sir," "you're past the swim cutoff. We're sorry. But we're gonna have to take you in."
So what goes through your mind right then?
I was totally devastated.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I was.
Yeah.
So they pulled me up in the boat, and the lady said, "I am so sorry." I mean, she was very apologetic, and she said, "I am so sorry that we had to do that, but they had to do what they had to do." So we actually, after they picked me up, we actually cruised over to the pier. There was a dude up underneath the pier, a swimmer.
Wow.
He had somehow got up under the pier, and it's probably a good 50, 75 yards from where the buoys were over to the pier. He was up underneath the pier, and we picked him up. He was a little disoriented. He said, like, what's going on? What are y'all doing?
Yeah.
And we couldn't get him. He was up underneath the pier, so they said, "Sir, you're going to have to swim out from underneath the pier so we can get you up in the boat." He said, "What are y'all here doing? Can we not finish?" So he was kind of out of it. So we picked him up, and then picked up a few more going in, and some that were closer to finishing than I was. And they didn't want to go up in the boat, but they had to. So they dropped us off, just outside the surf, and so we had to hoof it back into the beach, and it was great. The volunteers were there, and they gave everybody a hand and was clapping, and but then they said they was a pretty good group of us. There was 502 that didn't make the swim cutoff.
Yeah.
So
I think one over 1 out of 4.
1 out of 4, yeah. So our day was done. They said we have to collect your timing chip. So we had to take our timing chip off our ankle and give it to them. And so the day was done for Ironman Florida.
Wow.
So
and there were others that are kind of in our local groups around here that were there as well, and they suffered the same fate.
So there were 5 of us friends that went down there, and 3 of us didn't make the swim cutoff.
Yeah, and it seems like the earlier you went out, the better chance you had. The conditions seemed to be a little bit better.
Yeah, one of my friends said his second loop was definitely rougher than his first loop, and he started probably 30 or 40 minutes before I did.
Yeah, So looking back on this day, and we always say, you want to do you want to get to the you should never say I'm 100% going to finish any race you're going to,
right.
But you should absolutely say I'm going to 100% do everything I can to make it to the start line as prepared as I can be.
Mm-hmm.
So looking back on everything that transpired there, it sounds like you checked that box where you did everything you could to be prepared.
Yeah.
At the start line.
Yeah,
and then
I felt prepared, and not for the conditions, but for the race.
Yeah.
Not for the swim conditions, but I was prepared for the race.
Well, and I think that's the thing, that there's no shame in getting pulled off something like that, because it was a brutal. I mean, I was tracking, and then I was following in some of the Facebook groups, and it was apparent from the very beginning. They were talking about just the carnage that was out there and the conditions. And I told you earlier that I wasn't even as concerned for you guys as hey, are they going to make the swim? But are they going to make it out of the water? I mean, it sounded that intense out there. And I think, guys, it's something. And I think when we run into things like this, I think it makes us appreciate the successes more, because the thing about an Ironman, the thing about any kind of, is there's so many variables that you face, that and so many of them are just completely out of your control.
Yeah.
That you just got no control, because you said that the next day. Well, how was the water the day after the race?
Oh, by that afternoon it was
perfect.
Yeah.
I mean,
I didn't even want to look at it.
Yeah.
I mean, we stuck around to cheer on the other friends, and I didn't even want to look at it. But it had calmed down, and by that afternoon, and was absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, so I mean, it's is there anything you would have changed? I mean, as you look back on it, I mean, are you? And obviously, coming out of it, it takes a little while to recover from a letdown like that. You know that it.
I don't know. I've thought about that, and I don't know if there's anything I could have. There's a lot of what ifs. What if I had started maybe in the group 30 minutes ahead, but they want you to seed yourself what you're going to think you're going to, the swim time. So I was perfectly where I seated myself, looking around at the athletes that was in that group. I felt like I was in the right group to do that. So I'm not sure there's anything I could have done. So
well, and I think that's what you got to take your solace in. And then so where do you go from here? What's next on your agenda?
Well, when we were driving home from Florida, we got to about Columbus, Georgia, and I turned to my wife, Jill. I said, I got to try it again. So I am.
Yeah. I mean, it's emotional. It's emotional. I mean, it's gosh, I mean, heck, I mean, I've been chasing this dream of doing an Ironman for 5-6 years now.
We're gonna get you in it.
Yep. And for you to, gosh, man, I think it would be easier. I think it'd be easier to get out on the bike or get out on the run and just be like, man, I just didn't have it. I just wasn't prepared.
Yeah.
Made mistakes, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But when you face something that you got no control over.
Yeah.
And it just, you don't even, it's like you don't even get the chance to go show what you done. Yeah. I mean, it's it's just tough.
Coach Matt told me, he said, I didn't have an inkling that you'd have any trouble with the with the swim.
Yeah.
It's just the conditions.
The conditions
that you'd finish the swim or any part of it. I mean, he gave me the time that he thought I'd finish in, and I had the same number in mind, and so didn't get to try.
Didn't get to try it.
Well, I'm gonna try again.
But you're gonna try again. So
right.
Are you ready to say what you're gonna do next or the next year?
Right now I'm probably gonna do Ironman Chattanooga.
Yeah.
September 25th, I think.
Yeah.
I kicked around going to Tulsa in May just to get it over, earlier in the year to get it over with, where I wouldn't have to train in the heat again this summer. Yeah. But with Chattanooga, with the proximity to where we live in upstate South Carolina, it's a downstream, downriver swim, which could or could, you never know.
Yep.
But I think it suits me versus having to travel by plane or driving 8 to 10 hours to Maryland or somewhere. So
well, and it's not in the ocean either.
And not in the ocean either. That's right. That's right.
Yeah, you may not. It may be a while before you ever cross the Florida line again.
And I would, yeah. But I could do that. I mean, with the water being nice, I could do that swim. But
hey man,
bad experience. So.
It was a really tough break, but it is.
Yeah.
I mean, there was. You can go look, and people have done. They've calculated the wind and what the current was, and talking about that cross from buoy to buoy, getting there, and
what you had to be
swimming
in,
what you had to be able to swim in, and so man, you did everything in your power to be able to do it, and now you're going, you'll be back for redemption.
Yep, and it'll be sweeter next time.
That's right. So. Well, we're proud of you. I know everybody here was proud of you. Honestly, glad that you got out of the water. It was touch and go dicey there. Just from what we were.
The tracker, the Ironman tracker, I think scared a lot of people when I was in the water so long, and it wasn't giving any updates. So I know it scared my mom.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, you did. I mean, I know I started like, okay, something's not right.
Yeah,
something's not right with this.
Yeah,
and so anyway, so that's part 2 of the podcast, man. And I know it's disappointing, but you will, you live to fight another day, and we're gonna put Ironman Florida in the rearview mirror, just like a whole lot of people are trying to do.
Oh yeah, yeah. I walked out with one lady. She'd done 11. She was 11-time Ironman, and she said she'd never seen anything like that. She didn't make it either.
Yeah.
So I think that's the point where I realized how bad it was. So any parting words for those that are considering jumping to that maybe half Ironman to full Ironman level that you would encourage them on? If you hadn't got a great coach, get one. Of course, I personally, I think you can do a half without one, but having a plan, but a personal coach.
Yeah,
I think you can get by doing a 70.3 without one. But for a full, you got to have somebody. I think so whether it be Coach Katie or a service like I use, Triathlon. My personal opinion, you got to have somebody to help you.
Yeah, so I completely agree.
Yeah.
Well, man, I appreciate you sharing your heart on this. I know it's tough to talk about, but it's almost like a therapy session, man. You get to talk it through, and you got to believe that as old Lady Luck, dishes stuff out to us. Well, maybe you've gotten your dose of bad luck.
Yep.
That's been sent out to you. So we will chronicle your journey moving towards the Ironman next year, and all the other stuff I know you'll be doing. But we're proud of you, man. Glad you made it out alive, and you will, I know you'll be back and be stronger than ever.
Yep. Everybody keep doing those hard things, and You'll be a badass.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And so with that, for Hal Morris, who went through the ringer and never quit. And like I said, there were people coming that there were reports, people, they would finish the first loop and just walk. So it was almost like Bigfoot, just walking out of the water and just walking straight up and not even trying it again. And, you never quit. And so we applaud you on that. And we'll just remind you, as we always sign off with, that if you'll just do the hard things today, tomorrow will take care of itself.